Alright, so I waited until my paper was I used. Now, it's up to your mom and dad what they decide to do. Now, you can use an iron on low temperature and just press it on your paper to help dry it, or a hair dryer, but also with the iron it flattens your paper out. So after a while, when you start doing this or watercolor, your paper buckles, so this kind of smooths it out. But ask your mom and dad. So you don't have to do this, but it does help. Alright, as we go. Alright, so my paper is completely dry. So if you have a hair dryer, it helps. It speeds up the process of the waiting. So I'm starting, I don't know if you can see, there's some spots, which is just water spots, these really dark spots, but you can see where I'm starting right here is really white, like a light gray, and starting building up around. Alright, I don't know if you can see I can see as we're starting to build our layers. So, but ask your mom and dad about the iron. You don't have to do it, but it's just an option. And make sure they're around when you do it, if they let you do it. Alright, so I got a spot because of the iron, but it's okay. Alright, so I'm going to keep going. I probably won't talk as much. I'm just going to start going and see where I go. I'll stop about every 10 minutes and to stop the video to make another part. So this is part 4, maybe. Seems like I've been talking a lot. So I'm using number 2. I'm just going to start. Now, if you remember, as you put these down, you can't go back. But also, when I put that down, I'm going to lighten it up and blend it. So what I did is I put it down first, then clean my brush, and you just straight water, and you can blend it out a little bit, where you get a nice transition. So I'm using my number 3, which is kind of a middle gray. I'm just starting adding different grays, paying attention where they start and stop and how they transition to the next color or gray. Just be mindful. Like I said, if you go too dark too fast, you can't come back. So when you're cooking, you add too much salt. You have too much salt, it's hard to get it. Same idea. So best to go slow and steady than fast and mess everything up. So I'm gonna start going a little bit darker. Now I can always go back. Don't think number 1 is done. Like I said before, you can always go back and forth to your different shades and grays. But I really want, just let me say this, these 3 the darkest dark and the 2 light darker ones, the grays, I want to save those to the very end. And you might not even use these as much if you build layer on top of layer, putting darks on top of, a middle gray on top of another gray. As we go, you can build that darkness up anyway. start moving. I'm still working with these 2, 3, and 4 as the ones I'm working with right now. Just some nice lighter grays to middle grays. And remember, if you need to stop before me, that is fine. You don't have to complete the video, each part. So if you need to stop halfway through to let yours dry, go ahead and stop, let it dry. Use a hairdryer, dry it out some where we can keep going. I'm not using a lot of wet on wet. That's another technique. Most time mine's dry on dry, which I like the look of. But if you want to try that, you can Google wet on wet and try to find something that way. Also, you notice how I'm using the contours of the apple to draw the lines. I don't want my lines to go straight. I want it to follow the shape of the apple when I'm doing this. And also, I did that, so I went back on top with a number 2 color just to give it some. So this is pretty wet, so I'm going to leave that alone for a while and go to the other side and start working another little bit. Like I said, if you want to put down, like, I don't know what color, which one that was, what shade, gray, but I put down, I'm going to take some water. I cleaned my brush, took some water and just went around the edge, and it blends it a little bit. Also, I always use my paper towel just to clean my brush. I don't like it super wet. I like it pretty dry. If it's super wet, it just makes a mess, in my opinion. So I'm also looking at how the shape of these, like this area, the shape of this. So I'm also using my guidelines, my grid, to determine what shape this needs to be, this lighter part. So it comes around here and goes back halfway. So also keep using your grid to figure out where to put your light parts and your dark. So don't forget about your grid. I'm taking my time using a little bitty brush strokes around areas. Not anything too much. You can always add, then not take away. So that's been about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna let it dry for a little while. Use a hairdryer, dry it out a little bit, and then come back.